guys, it's Cami with Timberlane Studio, and today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful copper tree. Now you can do this copper tree in this verdigris finish, or you could leave it raw copper like this one. And I'm going to take you step by step through the process of how to create this. And if you purchased the kit on my website, thank you. For those of you who already own the copper tooling kit and the work mat, chances are you bought the refill kit. If this is your first time with any of my projects, you're going to need the full kit for this. So that means you need the copper tooling kit, the work mat, and then all the things included in this. And that's all on my website. You can check that out. But just know that don't buy the refill kit if you don't have the copper tools and the work mat, because you'll be a sad panda because you won't be able to make it without those. So come along with me. I'm gonna show you how to make this so you too can have this beautiful piece in your home, or be cool and give it to a friend for the holidays, all right? Come on, let's go. So the first thing you're gonna need is your blue silicone craft mat. If you already have this and your toolkit, you're good to go. If you don't have this, you need to purchase this. So this is one of the things that's essential for this. Then you have your paper cone that we're gonna be building our tree upon, a bottle of Gorilla Glue gel, your patina solution. It's optional, you don't have to use a patina solution, but it's pretty. You have a patina brush, and then you have your strips of copper that we're going to be creating the little pieces for the tree. You're going to need a scissors, and you're going to need some kind of measurement device. That's a quilting thing. You can use a ruler, whatever it is, but you're going to need to make 1.5 inch squares. So this is what you need to get started, but we're going to set the cone and the patina and the glue aside for the time being, and we're going to dive into creating the actual copper pieces that go around this tree. In your Timberlane Studio copper toolkit, there are 6 tools. You are only going to be using 2 tools for this tutorial. If you want to use the other 4, that's fine, but we're going to be using the one that has a little pizza cutter wheel with the little teeth on one end, and then a plastic pointed stylus on the other. And then the other is the metal medium point stylus on one end and a rounded plastic stylus on the other. Those are our 2 main tools that we're going to be using for this project. So with our copper strips, they are 18 inches long by 1.5 inches tall. We are going to be taking 2 of the copper strips out of the group, and we're going to set them to the side because we're not going to do anything with those yet. But the remaining 5 pieces, we are going to individually design each specific piece in different patterns, and I will show you how to do this. And you can feel free to create your own pattern, but these are the specific patterns that I used for this. And then after we're done with the pattern making, we are going to cut each piece into 1.5 inch segments, and then we're going to diagonally cut those into triangles to create our tree. So for this first texture, it's cross-hatching waffle type texture, and we're going to be using the medium metal point stylus with that rounded end. We are going to be using the metal part of that tool, and we are going to be creating diagonal lines starting from one end going all the way to the other end. And you want to press pretty hard on your copper to get the most bang for your buck. And we're just going to take these diagonal lines all the way down our copper piece. They don't have to be totally perfect as far as spacing is concerned. You want to have them close enough together for it to be interesting, but not too far apart where there's too much space in between there. And then if you have to go back in and put another line in between the lines, feel free to go ahead and do that. So now, just to create that hashtag or that cross-hatching texture, we are just going to go in the opposite direction with that metal point stylus. And I like to keep these lines a little bit closer together for this, just so I can fill in more of the area. And then you might want to take the side of your plastic tool to kind of just iron out the surface of the copper, because it'll start to curl because we're kind of messing around with the copper. So that's totally normal and totally fine. So I'm just taking those diagonal lines, and I am going and filling in more of that space. And again, they do not have to be perfect. Don't worry about this. Now if you flip over your sheet, you'll notice it's kind of raised and curling, so you can take the side of that plastic tool and just kind of iron everything out so that copper sheet lays nice and flat. You might have to do it to the front side and the back side a couple times. Now the next pattern that we're going to be doing is just a very easy squiggly pattern, squiggly lines. We're going to do it on one side, we're going to flip it and then do the same squiggly line pattern on the other side. So take your tool and just start to create these little fun squiggly lines. Notice how I'm holding my stylus. I have the butt of it in my palm and then my finger is on top of it and my thumb's on the side, and I'm just pulling down towards myself. This helps my hand from getting fatigued. You can give it a try, or if you feel like holding it with a traditional, like how you would hold a pen, feel free to do that too. This works for me because these are real simple lines, so you don't have to be very precise with them. So just holding it that way and just pulling down real quick, it's a real easy way to keep your hand from getting tired. All right, now that we have one side all filled in with these squiggly lines, what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip over our sheet of copper to the other side, and we are going to be going in between these squiggly lines with more squiggly lines. So we're creating kind of like a wavy, undulating texture on this copper piece. And again, we're just gonna do the same type of technique, just going in between those lines we had already placed down on the opposite side. And you can see that's just kind of makes that copper shine pop a little bit more. And again, just take that side of that stylus and iron out your copper so it's not curling on you. And we're just going to place this really pretty piece over to the side and get started on our third piece. So for the next texture, we are just going to be using that pizza cutter. You're gonna hold the tool with your pointer finger on top and the end of the tool in the palm of your hand, and just go in a diagonal pattern, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, filling in all that copper with those lines. And you'll see that it has this really beautiful quality to it when you create all these little like dots and divots in there. And this will make your copper curl a lot faster than anything that we've done before. So just kind of, when you're doing it, keep it in mind that you're gonna have to kind of straighten it out and iron it down with the side of that plastic tool so that it's not curling up on you while you're working. And you wanna keep a good pressure on this, because the heavier the pressure you have, the more pop you're going to get with your pattern. There's really no right or wrong way to create this pattern, just as long as you're going in the same direction the entire piece. And then we're gonna move on to our next pattern, which is very, very simple, very, very fun. Get your other piece. You're going to be taking that opposite end of that pizza cutter tool with the pointy end, and what you're gonna be doing is stipling lots and lots of dots all over the copper. And you can see how hard I'm pushing because my camera is shaking like crazy. What you want to do is you want to keep them kind of concentrated so that you have a lot of dots all over your copper, not a lot of spread out, and you want to fill them in. This is going to take a little while because, you know, we're working with 18 inches of copper and these are tiny little portions that fill in that space. So just keep it random, keep it real loose. Just make sure you're pressing hard enough. You can press too hard and puncture the copper, so keep that in mind too, but just sit there and stipple away. And you can see how beautiful that turned out with these little dots and divots, and you can determine if you want to use the divot side for your tree or if you want the raised bump side for your tree too. For this next piece of copper, what we're going to be doing is again using a real squiggly motion with our end of that pizza cutter tool. The line you would get is a little bit wider than the one with the metal tip tool. If you want to vary it up and use both, it's not a whole lot of difference, but for some of us who are a little bit more on the very detail oriented end, we can tell the difference. So if that's you, then change it up between which tool that you like. But whatever you do, you want to kind of go in a diagonal direction with this, filling up the whole entire piece, trying to keep those lines squiggly, interesting, and spaced out. And we're using heavy pressure. We will only be doing this on one side. And you can see where I went in and laid down my initial squiggly lines and then went back in and added more in between each one. So now we have our 5 different patterns that we are going to be putting all together to create our little leaves of our tree. So the next step will be measuring each individual square. There's gonna be a lot of cutting, so buckle up. Now, unfortunately, this is the very tedious part of this project. This is where it gets very repetitive, and it's fine because the end product is fun. But what you're gonna be doing is you are going to cut all of those strips into 1.5 inch sections. And you're just gonna mark where you need to have your 1.5 inch marks on your copper. Take that scissors and cut away. And then once you have all those squares cut, you are then going to take your squares and you will cut them into triangles. When you do this, I want you to be mindful of where your patterns are on your squares. So if you have a pattern that is diagonal, I want you to cut in the opposite direction of that diagonal pattern so that you're not cutting with the diagonal, you're going against it. It just helps it to be arranged on the tree so that it retains that diagonal interest. Okay, we got all the piles of copper triangles. We're going to need our Gorilla Glue. Make sure you shake it up really well and take the green cap off. And then you're also going to need, of course, your tree base. Now we are going to start at the bottom of our tree base using the plain copper pieces only, not any of the fancy patterned pieces, just the plain copper pieces. Take our plain copper pieces, apply a little bit of the Gorilla Glue gel to the back side of that, and we're gonna go real light. See, I'm not using a lot here, and the stuff that I do put on the copper, I am just kind of spreading. I'm not squeezing and spreading out the glue, I'm just taking the glue I already put down and kind of spreading it out that way. So we're gonna take this piece, try to grab it by the edges so you don't get a lot of glue on your fingers, and you are going to align the very long edge of the triangular piece with the very base of the cone. And you want to get it to the very edge of that, and you are just going to press that piece down, and if you put enough glue on, it should stick perfectly. If you put too much glue on, you'll have a bunch of glue like squirting out all over the place. We don't want to do that. So then doing the same thing with the second piece, but we are going to adhere that in the opposite direction. So that long end will be on the top and the point of the triangle will fit down near where the first triangle is. Again, we're just painting on the glue very lightly and then fitting it so the pointed end is pointing down, and we are going to overlap the triangular pieces just slightly when we do this. And I have my hand on the inside of the cone for stability. And if you see, the triangles are not perfectly aligned at the top end, and they're not totally perfectly aligned at the bottom end. It's fine that is the way it is. We work with minor imperfections here. We're gonna repeat that pattern on the entire base of the cone. Taking a light hand with the glue and taking those triangles and flipping them and inverting them every other one, and making sure that you overlap the copper pieces slightly. Takes a little patience to get them to adhere. It shouldn't take more than like 15 to 20 seconds for each piece to grab onto the cone. As we get going, it might take a little bit longer depending on if you're adhering it directly to the paper or if you're adhering it copper to copper, because the copper to copper pieces tend to get a little dicey as far as how long it takes for it to stick. But just be patient and work with yourself. Don't get frustrated. Take some time. If you do get frustrated, feel free to walk away. Go get a glass of wine or a nice hot cup of tea or hot cocoa, whatever it is that you're doing, and just relax and try to enjoy the process. It's meditative. Put on some good tunes and have fun. And when you get to the very last piece where they have joined ends around that cone, just take another copper piece and overlap them so that there are no areas of paper showing on your base. So now that we have our bottom part of our tree covered in copper, we are now going to start to add all the little triangular pieces along the outside of the cone. And when we're doing this, we are actually going to be taking the hypotenuse of the triangle, which is the longest end, and we want that to be on a diagonal. The shorter side of the triangle, we want to have that be parallel to the base of the cone, and that short end of the triangle is going to run in a horizontal circle around the cone. So you're gonna wanna keep that in mind and just picture that there's a horizontal line running around the cone, and you're lining that top edge of the short end of your triangle with that. And we're just gonna put a bead of glue along that top short edge there. Again, light hand with the glue, okay? So now that we got a little bit of glue on there, we're gonna line that up with the point meeting the base of the triangle and that top horizontal line totally straight. We don't want that top line angled at all. We're gonna hold that there for a couple seconds until that grabs onto the paper, and then we're gonna grab another design and do the exact same thing, but what we want is to have a slight overlap on these triangles. So we want the point of the triangle hitting the base of the cone, and if it's a little bit taller than the one next to it, that's fine, don't worry about it. The important thing is we don't want to see any cardboard showing through anywhere where those two triangles are joining together. And I'm just gonna hold it there and let it grab that cardboard. So now I have two triangles together, and you can kind of see the top edge of the triangle is creating a horizontal line that goes all the way around, if you kind of use that as your base. If you need to add a line yourself, feel free. If you want that guide, you don't have to. Just kind of keep them in that same vicinity. Now select another pattern, whatever you'd like, put another bead of glue, and again, we are going to align them up. We don't want to see any of the cardboard, and we are going to just arrange it there so that top part of the triangle is nice and straight, and press and hold, and repeat this process until you get to the opposite side. And please work in the same exact direction. So I'm going in a counterclockwise direction when I'm adhering these on my cone. I'm gonna keep that counterclockwise direction going all the way up the cone. Don't change it up. Don't go counterclockwise one way and then clockwise the other way, because it'll mess up the continuity of the piece. Take a lot of time just on this piece so you can really see how they all line up together, because then you're just going to repeat that process all the way up. So when we get to the end of this first row of triangular pieces, we just want to make sure that there's no cardboard showing through, so you can overlap a piece on the other pieces if you need to, just to finish up that row of copper triangles. So now that we have that first row, we are going to create our second row. And to do that, we are going to think of it as the triangles are going to be staggered. So the point of your next triangle that you have is going to go in between the two triangles below it. And again, you're gonna wanna keep with that parallel top line going around. Again, a little bit of glue on that top edge. I'm gonna take that piece, align it, hold it with my thumb, and just press on there till it holds. So now you can see where that sits. So the next piece that we're gonna be taking, again, just select one at random, get that point in between the next two copper triangles below it. And you can see where it's gonna start to overlap. Hold that on there, get that point in between the two, making sure that top line of those triangles are aligned. And I am using all my fingers to hold it on because sometimes this gets temperamental. The copper pieces that have a little bit more depth and dimension to them tend to have a harder time sticking just because of all the little crevices that we've created in there. So kind of keep that in mind too. Again, for the third one, we are gonna go through, decide where we wanna place it, put a bead of glue on that top edge, align it up so that the point is in between the two triangles below it, and adhere, and repeat this process all the way around that second layer. Now you're gonna do this the entire tree all the way to the top until you get to the very tippy top, and I will show you how to finish that next. Okay, for the tip of the tree, it's really simple, pretty easy, but you are going to form the little copper pieces on before you even glue anything. So what you wanna do is you get one of your triangles, you are going to hold it with one hand and just wrap it all the way around the tip of that tree. Okay, just like this, and it should stay on by itself right now. So then you're going to position another piece of copper where it needs to be on the other side, on the opposite side of how you wrap the first one, and wrap that all the way around. And then you're going to take another piece and again do the same thing, just making sure we cover up any of that paper that is showing. So we just want to have look at your design and where your pieces, your triangles are like staggered, and just kind of eyeball it from there. But you just want to have all these pieces wrapped all the way around the top, and then what you're going to do is take off each of those pieces. Now I have 3 here. You might have 4, or you might have 2, but 3 is the number that I've seen. So what you're gonna do is take your glue, and this is, you're gonna put kind of a generous portion of glue on the tip of the tree. This is the easiest part of the tutorial. Now you're gonna position that first piece on and let that stick. I got some on my hands. Then we're gonna take the second piece again on the opposite side, just make sure it's on there. And then that third piece, we've already, put it on the glue already, so I'm gonna take a little bit more glue and wrap it around the 2 pieces that are already on there, and just take that last finishing piece, it's like the star on the tree, and stick it on top, and then just kind of squeeze that copper together so that it adheres around the form. Now the little copper end that you may have on there, take a little bit of glue, squeeze the tip of the tree so it sits real tight on that paper form. And now you have a beautiful copper tree. If you would like to keep this tree just plain old copper, I suggest you can leave it and it will darken over time and get more orangey and warmer in tones. Or if you like to keep it preserved the way it is, I recommend Rust-Oleum Clear Coat in a satin finish. It keeps the luster of the copper. It looks really nice, but it prevents it from getting dark and dingy, and it keeps it from oxidizing. It looks really, really nice. So in order for the patina to properly adhere to the tree, we need to clean off any excess areas of glue that may have happened on this project. I've made a lot of these and I still get glue on the copper. So what you're gonna need is, I use 100% acetone nail polish remover and cotton swabs. Just make sure you have a paper towel down on your workspace so that you're not messing up any wood tables or anything. And it's real simple. You're just gonna take your nail polish remover, on your copper. Go ahead and look for any like cloudy areas that the glue has settled in. Take that cotton swab and just load it up with acetone and start to just rub off those areas. It might take you a long time if you've, gotten crazy with the glue. It might not take you a long time, but the important thing is we want to have our tree clean for the patina. So once we have all the glue removed, you're going to need your bottle of green oxidizing solution and your patina brush. Now this part is very easy and very simple, but it does take a little time just because it's a natural process of oxidation. So it can take anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours, depending on where you want the oxidation to stop. So when we do this, just make sure you have your work surface protected. You are going to take your patina spray and completely saturate the entire tree, and all the copper on the tree. You just take that patina spray, spray it on there, and then you're gonna take your patina brush and finish brushing and moving the solution around on the copper so that it's nice and spread out so there's no missing pieces. I mean, it's fine if you miss a few pieces, no biggie, but just make sure you have that nice and spread. It's gonna start to turn a light pink color pretty quickly, and once you get it to that like light pink color, put it in a warm, sunny area. Preferably in my studio, I have these windows that they're southern exposure, so it lets in a lot of natural sunlight, so it oxidizes a little bit quickly. But having it in a warm area is going to help that process along. So once you have that all spread out, leave it sit, come back an hour later. After 1 hour, you can see that it's already started to oxidize. What we want to do is just respray the copper again with the oxidizing solution. Do the same thing with that patina brush, just spreading it all around. This just helps spread around the stuff that's already oxidized to cover a little bit more of the copper and just kind of move that oxidation around. Now we're gonna let this sit for 24 hours. So after 24 hours, it's gonna look like this. If you like it this way, you can stop the oxidation process altogether and just seal it with that Rust-Oleum satin clear coat. It will darken it slightly, not a lot, but slightly, and sealing it will just stop that oxidation. Now, if you want a tree that's more green and less green aged, but a little bit more like Statue of Liberty green, you're gonna repeat this process again for a second time. And again, just spray the outside of that tree. Make sure you use your patina brush to spread the oxidation solution around and leave it in a warm place, and then come back after 24 hours. Okay, this is now after 48 hours of oxidation, and you can see the color. Now, if you like this color, again, keep it. If you want it to be more green, let's do the same exact thing that we've been doing, reapplying the oxidation solution in the patina and letting it sit for another 24 hours. If after 72 hours it's not green enough, you can do it again. You can do it as many times as you want, but there will be a point where it doesn't oxidize, or you could let it sit you can let it sit for an entire week and see if it oxidizes any further to get more green. It's really dependent on the conditions in which you are oxidizing. For me personally, when I oxidize things in the summer when the humidity's up, I get more aqua greens, as opposed to the winter when it's not as humid, it's a little bit more dry. My greens aren't as bright and vibrant, but are still very, very beautiful. So it's really just a, kind of environmental and natural process. But whatever you did, I hope you enjoy your tree. Please share with me on social media at Timberlane Studio on Instagram and Facebook. Share with your friends if you've enjoyed this. I know it was tedious. I know there's a lot of moving parts and pieces that just completely repeat over and over again. But the end result is awesome, and you have a nice little tree now to decorate your home for the holidays. You can leave it out all year round. I mean, it's not like overtly holiday themed, but then just remember to fluff out those little triangles. Be careful because it's pokey, and have fun with it. I hope you have fun creating with me. Thanks for supporting my small art-based business. I have a great time creating these designs and projects. I hope you have a great time doing them and following along with me. If you enjoyed this, please share your experience on Facebook and Instagram. If you did enjoy it, please email me and tell me why, and I will try to make it right. But it is my goal to have happy, creative hearts, and please check out the other kits that I offer on my website at www.timberlanestudio, and hope you had a great time. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Okay, I was having an idea when I was editing this video. For those of you who want to be a little extra and take a little bit more time to really make this project unique and different, I haven't done this yet, but in my head it sounds really cool. So what you could do is once you have all your copper triangles done, you can oxidize half of them first, oxidize them the green color and let them sit, and then keep the other half raw copper. And then when you build your tree, you'll have a variety of copper and verdigris on there, which I think in my head, in theory, sounds absolutely amazing. And I might just do that. So stay tuned, and I'll probably post an end result on my Instagram of how that's gonna turn out. So that's just a thought. Be creative with this and make it your own project. That is like the best fun thing you can do. Everything that I do is just a guideline. You guys make it special. So have fun, and we'll see you later.